looking down the road just like I always do.
Well, good afternoon, Matrix. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it might be, wherever you might be on this glorious February day. It is approaching the middle of February, and as you can see here in Virginia, south of Charlottesville, that's right, Bear, I drove south of Charlottesville again. We still have lots of snow. This is the first time now I've been recording since early January. Actually, yesterday was the first day in 2 weeks, 15 days, that I actually got to ride the bike. We had a magnificent, hellish snow ice storm hit about 15 days ago. And boy, I'll tell you what, the roads, the parking lots, just blocks of ice, because it wasn't just the big snowfall, which we definitely got. It was followed by basically frozen rain, sleet, and then of course days and days of temperatures in the teens Fahrenheit. So my UK friends, that's very many numbers below zero temperature. So it just froze like blocks of ice around cars. There were cars in my parking lot that didn't even move for basically all those 15 days. I had, fortunately, a neighbor give me a metal shovel, and I took about an hour, but I got my car dislodged after a few days, so finally I was able to get to the supermarket and get much needed provisions. But only a couple days ago I managed to actually free Libby here. I liberated Libby. I abolished the ice that she was encased in. And yesterday was the first day in 15 days that I got to be on a motorcycle. And let me tell you something, I spent some time in some of my early videos talking about the therapeutic properties of riding a motorcycle, the mindfulness state that it puts you in that requires your sort of bubble of attention right around where you are, even when you're talking to people on YouTube. Oh, by the way, my name is Philip. Thanks for, dead body in the road. My name is Philip. This is my little channel, The Inner Road. For those of you who've been here before, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for coming back. And those of you who've never been here before, thanks for visiting. I hope you stick around. I am a motorcycle enthusiast. I am also a research psychologist. I tend to try and do my best to talk a little bit about both those things. But yeah, I was talking about the therapeutic benefits of riding motorcycles a number of times in my past videos. And I can tell you right now, those were anecdotes, you could say. By the way, for those of you scoring at home, the plural of anecdote is data. That's the actual quote. Some of you may know it differently, but the original researcher who said that, a man named Wolfinger, that was his quote. The plural of anecdote is data. Just remember that. When people say, oh, that's just a bunch of anecdotes. Right. All data are anecdotes, just aggregated. So, never mind. I had some anecdotes where I told you about the therapeutic benefits, trying to take it a little careful here today as the snow is melting and the ice is melting, about how therapeutically healthy this motorcycling endeavor was. That you had basically this mindfulness state that forced you to just be in the present and lets all the stuff that's been bothering you all day just slip away, right? You can't really pay much attention to it because you have to focus on what it is you're doing, especially on days when you got stuff in the roads, salt and ice and snow. You got to be careful. And you just got to stay right in your present mindset and your present state, and that's really healthy because you stop ruminating about stuff that bothers you. Well, like I said, that was my experience as a new rider last year, and I can tell you right now, we have data. We have new empirical data because this was what's classically known as an ABA design. This is Research 101. ABA. A's are usually the baseline conditions, so you start in baseline, and then B condition, you give a treatment, you give something, you take something away, whatever it is, and then after a while you return to baseline. And you're looking to see, does that B condition differ from baseline? And I can tell you right now, if I haven't lost you already, the B condition, taking away the motorcycle for 15 days, hell yes, that was brutal. I'm telling you, this was I had a really difficult time not riding my bike for 15 days, and I know some folks online who are friends of mine in the motorcycle community here in Charlottesville. They agree. We've been checking in on each other. You know, you have S.A.D, seasonal affective disorder. That's a real thing, and that's just sort of what normally happens to a lot of people in the wintertime, right? It comes around late fall, early winter, and then stays through until spring, and that's the end of, you know, that's the result of just long, dark days, not getting outside in the sun. It leads to depression. It leads to bad sleep disruptions, sometimes oversleeping, overeating, gaining weight, craving carbohydrates, especially as a part of S.A.D, seasonal affective disorder. Now, I'm an Italian American, so I was born craving carbohydrates, so that's just sort of my baseline condition. But yeah, it's a real thing, S.A.D. Well, I experienced MAD, M-A-D, motorcycle affective disorder. Let me tell you something, it piled on the S.A.D. And I know others experienced that as well, and it's just been so glorious. We finally have weather today. It's in the 50s. Yesterday was 57. I think today's 56, 57 Fahrenheit. Unbelievably nice, given where we've been, what we had. Libby, like I said, just locked in blocks of ice. I'll put a picture up there of what that looked like at one point during those 15 days. It was not pleasant. But I'm back, and people are starting to free their bikes. A Bear got his own channel. You should check it out. Just showed me a picture today of his Harley trike finally extricated from the ice that was keeping him off the bike. And I know it's going to be so good for him and others to just get out again. Guess what? Next week, later next week, mid to late next week, 67 degrees. I'm telling you, spring is coming. It's going to be glorious, and I feel like we're owed that. So that's what I'm aiming for. That's what I'm aspiring to. So I wanted to just reach out to you today and talk to you about what it is that you can find in your life and get you through these seasonal affective times. Hopefully the weather is starting to change wherever you are. I'm going to take this ride on Old Lynchburg Road. Again, doesn't necessarily have to be motorcycles. Could be something else. Got a good buddy at work. For him, it's working on watches, repairing watches and taking them apart and fixing them and putting them back together. Whatever it is that gets you focused on something and lets you kind of remove yourself from the thoughts that are sometimes really difficult to stop focusing on, those negative thoughts. One of the things that S.A.D does, and certainly MAD, motorcycle affective disorder as well, is one of the key things I've talked about before is it generates basically a tendency for people to isolate themselves. Obviously, winter is a difficult time for people to get out and see people, so that's inherently a part of it, but it's also just a part of the disorder, right? It's a part of that depression. People isolate when they're feeling low and down. They don't want to be around others, and that just starts compiling the problem, right? It just starts making it worse and worse, compounding the problem. So try and find something. Maybe it's motorcycles, maybe it's bicycles, maybe it's hiking, whatever it is. Now as the weather hopefully is changing wherever you are. For those of you who live where I used to live, out west, California and the Arizonas and the Vegas areas, all those kinds of people, God bless you. All I know is for a bunch of you, you got some 125 degree Fahrenheit days coming your way, and I don't want any of that. So it's a trade-off. I get it. I will say Virginia, you don't think of as a heavy winter state, but things have changed a little bit. All right, I'm just musing now about winter and weather. Isn't that fun? Well, one last thing I wanted to talk to you about today. I just wanted to say hi. I wanted to let you know what's going on. I wanted to let you know that I'm back. And for those of you who care about that, I really look forward to sharing some ideas and thoughts with you in this coming year. I'm thinking about maybe purchasing a new motorcycle later on in the year as I approach my 1-year anniversary. We'll see how that goes. That's the goal, potentially. But I wanted to just one little fun bit of research for you, a little bit of psychology research for you, as this is going to be coming out right around the time of Valentine's Day. And for me, I'm one of those guys that Valentine's Day is a corporate holiday meant to take people's money, and I am a bit cynical like that. I will also say that if I'm dating someone who they care about Valentine's Day, then you better believe I care about Valentine's Day. It's when I'm single as I am now, in principle, then yeah, Valentine's Day is capitalism at its worst. When my partner wants to have a lovely romantic evening on Valentine's Day, so do I. But here's the research I wanted to talk about as you think about Valentine's Day and what attracts you to your partner, maybe what attracts you to anybody. It's one of my favorite. I was fortunate in my 17 years at the University of Essex to be basically the person who taught the lecture in social psychology on close relationships, and a part of that lecture, that 2-hour lecture, was about attraction. What is attraction? What can we quantify and come up with some parameters as to what makes people find other people attractive? And one of my favorite sort of findings in research is something known as, I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, but I just love this. It's called the averageness effect. The averageness effect. Now, I want to be clear. What this means is, and I'm going to show you some pictures on the screen. And what it works out is that human beings on average are attracted to the average of faces, not average faces, right? So in other words, I could ask 100 people to look at a series of photos of people, and I could say, rate them on their attractiveness from low attractiveness to average attractiveness to high attractiveness. And we can do that. There will actually be some general agreement. That's the point. Attractiveness is something that actually has, there's system to it. There's a way in which it works on average for people. And this is not what I'm talking about. So the people who are in the middle of that, like, oh, you're not ugly, but you're not exactly pretty either. That's not the average I'm talking about. The averageness effect is this really cool effect where you take a photo of a guy. I'm going to show you on the screen. The photo is B. This guy on the screen, B, and you compare him to, let's say, 7 other faces, right? So I'm going to show you, let's look at face A and B, and then you ask people, which is more attractive, A or B? And then you take the next one, A or B, and then you take the next one, A or B, and the B is always the same guy. It's always the same dude, and you just keep going through A or B, A or B, A or B, which is more attractive, which is more attractive? That's what you ask people, and you go through that 7 sort of comparison array. And what you find, and maybe as I'm showing you those photos, you may have done the same thing. I know it's, look, beauty's in the eye of the beholder and all that. I understand it. But, you can ask people, is this an attractive, and is this person more attractive to you than that person, right? I get it. Everyone's beautiful. I really do believe that. But you get what I'm saying. So what you find, and what I assume may happen to a bunch of you folks who watch this, you probably chose B more often than the A's as being, of the 2 faces that you had to choose from, which was the more attractive face. And what the thing that is you then reveal as a teacher of this sort of research, the averageness effect, is that the A's, those 7 faces on the A's, they were all real people. They were real human beings. The B doesn't exist, never existed on this planet. B is a mathematically averaged creation of all of the A's that you saw, right? So it takes all of the parameters that matter to people who do this research, the eye distance from each other, the relationship of the eyes to the nose, to the mouth, to distance to the ears from the eyes. Literally, they have like unbelievable, like caliper level sort of analyses they do of human faces. And this algorithm basically looks at all the A's that you give it. So that B that you saw there, I put it into the calculator, into the computer, into the machine, and said, hey, give me a averaged face of all of these A's, these 7 A's. And it spit out B. And what's so fascinating is you find a huge statistical effect where the B, the averaged face, is almost always chosen as the more attractive face than compared to the real faces that helped generate the average. Now, why is that? There are 2 basic reasons why that's true, why we tend to find those averaged faces more attractive. And the first one is that just like the computer, just like the program is saying, okay, you've given me these 7 faces and I'm just generating like a prototype of those 7 faces. I'm just going to literally create something that doesn't exist, but I'm going to meld them all together into like an amalgam face that looks like the one you gave me. That kind of doesn't look like the ones you gave me, but it's made up of those faces, all the parameters. Well, that's what your brain has been doing since the day you were born. Your brain has been looking at faces and just storing faces as like, oh, I guess that's what a human face is. It's got eyes and a nose and a mouth and ears, and there's distances and there's parameters, et cetera, et cetera. And you've seen thousands, hundreds of thousands of faces, right, over the years of your life. And what has that done? It's created an averaged prototype of a face. In your brain, in your mind, you hold an averaged prototype of the human face. So what that means is when you see an averaged face, it looks more like the face that you hold in your mind as what a human face looks like, because you have your own average. We all do. So if I show you an averaged face, your brain goes, oh yeah, that's what a human face looks like. That's a good-looking human face. And the other thing that's related to this, there's, like I said, there's two reasons that this averaged face, this averageness effect works, is that what you find is that the averaged face, this B gentleman who doesn't really exist, all of his features are incredibly symmetric. It generates the process of averaging mathematically across multiple other faces. It generates a symmetrical face. So the nose is perfectly positioned between the eyes, which are not too close to each other, and they're not too far away from the mouth, which is not too far away from the nose, right? Everything is symmetrical. And we have a general, actually quite a large tendency to prefer symmetrical faces. And there's some evolutionary thinking behind that, that symmetry suggests health and fitness from a genetic perspective. So there are multiple, the symmetry component of it is more than just, there's actually some deeper explanation as to why that seems to matter to us. And there is some evidence that people with more symmetrical faces actually are healthier and are more even potent in terms of potentially having children, and in other words, continuing the species. It's remarkable research, but I always just thought that was so fascinating to me, that we are attracted to something that doesn't really exist, right? Think about that. We are looking for and we're drawn to faces on average, not everyone, but large percentages of human beings are going to stare at something and think, gosh, that's really attractive, when really what they're looking at doesn't even exist. Now, don't get me wrong, clearly, there are attractive, symmetrical, real people in this world. I am not one of them. Maybe you are. God bless you if you are. But it's really quite difficult to think about that your mind is comparing the people it meets to some prototype, some averaged exemplar, and that's potentially what you're using as part of your assessment. Like I said, beauty is skin deep. Eventually you're going to have to meet someone, talk to them, and see if you share anything with them beyond beauty. It's okay. It's okay that this is the truth. I mean, I'm not hottie B guy. I'm one of the A's, let's say. More likely an A than a B. And that's okay. But I just think it's really fascinating that this is the way we go through life, looking at people, making assessments. And we do it instinctually. We start right away with attractive, not attractive, safe, not a safe, approach, avoid, etc. And it's sort of embedded in us evolutionarily and instinctually. And anyway, I hope that you have found someone that is, I hope someone that you have found in your life is your B, whatever they look like. I hope you have someone to celebrate Valentine's with, if that's something that matters to you or matters to them. If not, just know that Philip is out here riding his inner road, thinking about you and wishing you the very best. I'm going to cut this off today. I just wanted to check back in with you. It's been so long. If you ride safe. Ride your ride, no one else's ride. Be good to yourself, be good to each other, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.